Yo, what is up?
Hey, everyone.
My name is John.
My name is Arvin.
And I'm Brenda.
And this is Behind the Scenes
of our best days.
We're so happy that you guys have joined us. This is season
6.
Season 6.
Season 6. Yes, we've done 6 of these.
And as you guys can see, if you are just listening, you should actually watch it because we are in a different physical location than what we usually are in. Yeah. We are here with Dr. Brenda Coomer Black.
Hello. Yay.
Dr. Brenda, she is my personal therapist so that I don't jump off a bridge or I don't want that to be a trigger.
Sorry.
But anyways, and I have a blanket on my lap because I have shorts on. It would be inappropriate. It would be R-rated film.
Modest.
So anyway, but we just thought Miss Brenda agreed, Dr. Brenda agreed to come on here to kind of talk through mental and emotional health. As you guys know, our podcast is about behind the scenes of our best days. Yeah. We both work at Victory. Yes. Brenda has worked in ministry. She's done a lot of different things, and you'll hear from that in just a moment. But one thing that we are really big on is what does it look like behind the scenes of ministry? Yeah. Whether you are going to church currently or you don't go to church or you're a believer or you're thinking about becoming a believer, this is for everyone. And it's really wonderful because we are very complex individuals. And so anyways,
that's right.
We are.
Brenda, do you want to just give them like a download of where we are, how you got here?
Oh man. Short version.
Sure.
I got here. Okay. It was my mid-30s. I went through a divorce. Yeah. Became a single mom of 3 kids and had been in full-time ministry prior to that and was like, okay, what am I going to do? Yeah. What's in front of me? Yeah. And actually, can I continue in ministry now as a single divorced woman, which was another crisis of mine that I had to really walk through. Oh, Lord. Oh, boy. I was 36 and I'm 54 now. I don't know. Do the math.
Sure.
But like, I'm sure, was it like taboo?
Oh gosh.
Because I feel like mental and emotional health is really ramped up where people really are like owning their story and really like, you know, they're more upfront within the last 6 years. But I can't imagine, you know, during that time being divorced and being like, I still want to be in ministry. Yes. I am a woman.
The gifts and call of God are without reproach, but how does that work? Yeah. You're now, and you're right. As a female, that's also a different journey. So, I mean, so for me at that point in my life, and I had done a lot of pastoral counseling and helped a lot of women in particular through a number of different, you know, issues in their lives. But I kind of went through a time like you know, what's ahead for me. And so that's when I went back to school. And started kind of moving. And honestly, I didn't want to do this professionally or as a licensed individual because I'm like, these people are crazy. Some therapists, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, whoa, like, you know. But I felt like the Lord said to me, this is your path, and I want you to do it intentionally different. Taking the spirit part and the ministry and the pastoral and the faith and the word part of it, and combining it with the actual training in mental health and having that understanding and kind of you know, marrying those two. Sure. And so I'm like, okay, we need that.
Was there a gap you observed between, like, every pastoral counselor I've met has been a very well-intentioned, biblically literate person. Okay. But then when you studied to become a licensed professional therapist, was there a gap of understanding between the two that you're aware of now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, really understanding the soulish realm on a level that, you know, I'm like, oh, wow. I mean, God made us incredibly intricate beings, and it's not just our spirit man. It's understanding our emotional being, our mental being, our hardwiring, our like we had mentioned talking prior to this. Sure. You know, the body keeps the score. Yeah. So our physical being and how it holds trauma and all of those things. Yeah. So I mean, I was like, oh my, I mean, light bulbs were going on left and right, and it also caused me to kind of go go back to the Word and go, okay, wait a second, Lord, what do you mean by this?
Right.
And kind of dig in a little bit
deeper.
deeper.
So you probably saw new things in the Bible because you were seeing new things within yourself.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So that's something, anyone who is listening or if you're watching, that's like the first tidbit. The more you get to know yourself, the more revelatory the Bible becomes. And it's not because there's something in the Bible that wasn't there before. It's that there's something in you that you did not notice before.
That's
so
right.
good, John.
That's right.
So, Miss Brenda, you went through all of this, and now here you are today. You have your own practice. That's amazing. What's the name of it?
Hope Forward.
Hope Forward.
Hope Forward
That's
Counseling.
A plug. Hope Forward Counseling.
Yeah, thank you.
I see her once a week. Arvin has a separate therapist, so we really are big believers in it. Now, because you are here and it's Hope Forward and you are a Spirit-filled believer, you have people who come to you that are Spirit-filled, some people that aren't saved or wouldn't call themselves believers or non-churchgoers. You also deal with ministers and pastors, people who actually are leaders of organizations that call themselves, like, I'm a spiritual leader of an organization.
Yes.
Wow.
Like, what is that like?
Yeah. Well, let me preface that by saying I was in full-time ministry going through a personal crisis, and I needed a safe place to go. And I went to somebody in the church who I had been working with in a pastoral position and opened up the pain and hurt that was happening in my own life. Believing it was confidential. And it ended up being turned and used against me.
Wow.
And that created, where a place in me, I'm like, who's safe? Where can I go and really get the support and the, all that I need? So that kind of shifted me a little bit, where then I moved into going back to school and getting my degrees and doing that to be able to do this professionally, because as a professional therapist, obviously you have you're bound to confidentiality. It's part of our ethics. But that's kind of, in a roundabout way. Am I answering your question? Yeah.
You mentioned pastors. You had some statistics.
Yeah,
you said specifically.
I do.
Because I know in this world and age, if you look on social media, you hear about, there was this pastor that failed in his marriage, or a pastor that embezzled blah blah blah, or something. You had some stuff, and I'm like, okay, there is a spiritual attack, but also, like, practically speaking, if you're a pastor, you are put into a position where you're not allowed to be mean. You're not allowed to do, you're not allowed to be human.
That's the thing right there.
And so really, I'm like, is it a spiritual attack, or is it just this dumb box that people have put pastors into, where it's like, you're not allowed to be human. You have to be perfect. You have to know everything about the Bible. And that causes, of course that would cause you to crumble, because it's the pressure. Anyway, so what were you saying?
Absolutely. That dumb box.
And
I think pastors and, spiritual leaders put themselves in that box too, because of the pressure to perform, to be perfect, to function at a level that is not human. I mean, what's
absolutely.
Human? Human, we struggle. We have weaknesses. We have mental health issues.
We have it behind the scenes.
Depression. We all do. And, since I knew we were doing this today, I was like, okay, I need to make sure that I know the latest statistic on depression in particular. And it's 4 out of every 10 people. So almost 50, almost 50% really are struggling with some kind of depression or depressive symptoms that are showing up in their lives. You guys know anxiety is at an all-time high. I feel like people that never previously felt like they experienced anxiety are walking in anxiety. And so pastors, ministers, and people that have to show up for others, constantly giving, constantly taking care of others' needs, or caregivers. Also, the burnout rate is huge. Okay, let me read some of this. I could talk for hours on this, honestly. 75% of of pastors, report being extremely stressed.
Wow.
90% work between 55 to 75 hours per week.
Man.
90% feel fatigued and worn out every week. 70% say that they're grossly underpaid, which creates other stress. 91% have experienced some form of burnout in ministry. And 18% say that they are fried to a crisp right now.
Wow.
70% of pastors say that they have a lower self-esteem now than they did when they entered ministry.
I believe that.
Tell me why.
I think because, Arvin's dad is a pastor and a minister. My dad, a pastor and minister.
My dad, pastor and minister.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, so we're all PKs.
Yeah.
And I feel like
Caleb
is
dad,
everybody in this room is a PK.
our producer, the guy filming this, Caleb. He's also a PK. His parents are still in ministry in Vegas.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is just amazing.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I watched, my dad, who I always viewed as perfect. Like it was crazy. That was the one thing at his funeral that kept on coming up, was everyone who spoke was like, he was perfect. And in my mind I was like, I watched him behind the scenes, and he, like, in my mind I was like, how did he do it? And then I found out later, my mom was like, oh, he struggled with all these things and it was eating him alive, and it actually helped speed up the cancer in his life physically.
Wow.
So the body kept count.
Yep.
Literally.
Yep.
The doctor said, whenever he passed away, the doctor said he lived 2 people's lives in the life of one.
Wow.
So my dad passed away at 57. And I'm like, so perfect does have a
Price.
due date.
Due date, price, yeah.
It has a price.
Yeah.
To where my dad was like, he wanted to be there for all the kids stuff, and so what I saw was like towards the end of his life, I always thought he was a really awesome person. I actually couldn't really connect with him because I was always getting into trouble, and I was like, I can't connect with my dad because he's like perfect. Like I never saw him sin.
Right.
Like he would yell. Or he would get upset. He wouldn't yell. He would raise his voice.
That's right.
Like literally, hand on the Bible. I'd never heard him yell. He would raise his voice, and then he would call me and go, "John, I was wrong. I apologize. Will you forgive me?"
Amazing.
And I was like, "Well, yeah, but for once, could you just say, don't ask for forgiveness? That's not very manly." You know what I mean? Like I was like, anyways.
Yeah.
I say all that to say that towards the end of his life, he was asked to be the interim president of Oral Roberts University whenever they were going through this thing.
I was there.
Wow.
I was there with him.
You did? Oh, yeah. And I remember it was the first time I was older because I had just graduated. I was just stepped out of ORU. And my dad was like, and I found out through other people. And I came home and I saw him and he was like, I don't know if I can do it. And I was like, it is a lot. I'm sure it's really tiring. And he's like, no, I don't know if Billy Joe is Billy Joe enough to do it. That was the first time I was like 24, and that was the first time I ever heard my dad talk like a human.
Yeah.
But he was from that old school,
Right.
Preacher day.
Yeah.
And so whenever you said about the self-esteem thing, I remember that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And my brother is now the head pastor.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so he openly talks about in his sermons about God always helping him through.
Yeah.
So that makes sense, the self-esteem thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a feeling, like you said, that you can't be human.
Yeah.
You got to keep the mask on, the persona of I have it together, because I have to have it together in order to help you.
That's right.
I can't really help you if I don't have it together.
Right.
But is that true?
Wrong. Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't think it's true. I mean,
we agree.
I think that you're like,
Yeah.
You're like holding a gun to me.
I know, like, wait, is it?
We're in this office.
I'm like, whoa, wait a second.
No, for real. Absolutely. Yeah. I even think biblically, like the people we admire, the stories that we tell ourselves,
Yes.
the Moses, the Noah, the David, you look at the behind the scenes of these guys' lives. I think of Noah in particular, like there's a reason that dude got drunk naked and passed out in a cave after everything went down. You know what I mean? And I think people, if Noah existed now, he'd be this renowned leader that accomplished whatever. And then you go, well, hold on a second. Like, him and his 3 sons had some beef afterward, and they had some stuff they had to figure out, and there was stuff to navigate. And I'm not saying we should condone that and go, oh, it's okay, I guess I can have a porn issue on the side, and I guess I have these, we've seen that go poorly for leaders as well. But in order to do it correctly, or to do it even, that's a wrong term, to do it in a way that's life-giving,
that's good.
I wonder about if it were more normal, if it were more accepted. Like, you have a dentist, you have a primary care physician, do you have a mental health professional?
Yes.
And I think the undertone of this episode, really, at least in my heart, is the people who listen to this who don't necessarily feel comfortable yet getting into a space like this because they have some concerns about what that might look and feel like, or even the cost or whatever. What would you say to those people who are on the fence, a little nervous, but they're like, maybe I do need a mental health professional?
I would say give it a try, but I go and seek counseling. I go to a therapist weekly or every
a therapist goes to
absolutely.
a therapist.
Absolutely. Because I need that support. I think that honestly, the stigma, like what's preventing you from making that step, or taking that step to get the support that you need? Is it old stereotypes, a mindset? Is it pride?
Interesting.
Is it I will say this: there are those that have had really bad experiences with therapists that really aren't skilled. And I think it's important, if you go for the first time to see someone, you should feel that connection within that first session. So here's what I hear. Well, I didn't really feel it, but I tried 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And, I'm hoping, like, oh, no. That should be there pretty quickly. It doesn't mean that they're your best friend, but it does mean that you feel that kind of a therapeutic connection, that you can be honest and real. And I'll tell my clients, sometimes it's not even about me hearing, it's about them saying.
That's right.
They need to get it out into the open, out of the dark recesses of their soul, and let it out and bring it into the light and get shame out, get shame off, and deal with the truth, whatever that is. And, God has a path forward. He has a way to bring us into freedom. That's always his plan, but we have to get it into the light.
That's right.
So, and do it in a safe, secure environment that you're not judged. There's zero. If there's ever judgment, you will not find freedom.
That's right.
So,
wow, hold on.
Okay.
I want you guys to write that down. If there's ever judgment,
pull your car over.
Get this tattooed on your lower back.
It's on mine. Oh.
If there's ever judgment, you won't find freedom.
That's so true.
Where there's judgment, you won't find freedom. Man. And that's also, that's a good thing to think through in friendships. The church God has called you to. Ministry, people in your life, and unfortunately, even parental figures in your life. If you're like, why do I have this? Why do I always get upset when I talk to X, Y, and Z parent? Well, if there's judgment, you don't feel free around them.
Right.
Anyways, it's just interesting.
It's really good.
You had some questions that you...
I did.
Okay.
I don't want to jump on what you were about to say.
No, you're fine. No, I was going to say also don't judge yourself.
Interesting.
I think that, like, for me, I walk in mostly, I'm pretty harsh on myself. So learning how to release that and challenge that within myself and with my therapist, I talk through that. Is this healthy?
Right.
How am I viewing that? But no, I do have something. But you asked.
What are you gonna
well, I'm thinking about the pastor in California that I think it was about 4 years ago now, 4 years ago that was mega church, young pastor at 30 years old, had 2 little kids, beautiful wife, 30 years old, committed suicide.
Right.
And, he was openly honest about a struggle with depression.
He preached sermons on it.
He did. And he tried to get the help. And I don't fully know the story of, because I didn't know him personally, of what that help looked like.
Yeah.
But in the end, he committed suicide.
Yeah.
And I think so much of it is because there's shame on us, especially as ministers and leaders and people that should have it together.
Yeah.
We can't struggle with mental health issues.
Right.
I don't have enough faith if I'm dealing with anxiety or depression. I'm not casting my cares on the Lord. We throw out these little coin scriptures that have power in them, but that's not the full picture, because there's some things happening physiologically in our brains, and we might need medication. That's one reason why I loved Oral Roberts so much.
Absolutely.
Healing evangelist. God can heal you. He'll lay hands on you, and you're going to be healed, and you can be healed and set free. Yet he started a hospital and a doctor, school of medicine, and City of Faith, which was a mega hospital, to help people through medication. So it doesn't take away God's power and ability to heal, but he also created us, with the ability to understand we need to take care of some things in the other realms of our lives, not just the spiritual component, the whole man, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I know a lot of people who, I say that to sound like it's not just me. I know a lot of people. That's my defense mechanism. And my therapist will hear me say that and go, "Oh yeah, how many?" I go, "Right now it's me." But I personally, I'll take myself as an example. I grew up half a mile from Victory, and my parents are pastors, Iranian pastors. They have TV programs for Persian believers around the world. So we have simultaneous local small church Iranians meeting, 25, 30 of us meeting in one of the rooms at this mega church in Tulsa. And the Tulsa culture is what it is. My dad's got this crazy testimony. And so I'm raised with this huge, planet-sized assumption about what that must be like to be on that platform, to execute those gifts. And I felt very certain, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, I want to be on that platform delivering a very powerful message like my dad was doing. I watched an unprecedented amount of attention, incidental fame happen for this guy. And knowing my dad, he was the antithesis of ambition. He never looked for opportunities. Frankly, and I think he'd like that I say this, he didn't even know how. Really. And then I grow up watching that and going, okay, we've got this beautiful story of how he escapes prison and persecution in Iran and certain death and whatever. I can milk this for attention. I can milk our process and I can leverage it. And what I'm trying to get to is what I think a lot of people, I do believe actually a lot of people who watch our podcast, listen to it, comment on it, who go to churches all over the country, who listen. There is a massive discrepancy between the way you feel when you see someone doing what you want to do and the way you feel when you're doing it. And that space in between is where a lot of religious trauma takes place. A lot of offense and bitterness takes place. And then ultimately this feeling of I guess I'm not cut out for this. Not realizing that by their own standard, even Jesus himself is not qualified for what they think they're supposed to be good at doing. Even the guy who took margin and took rest and sometimes disappointed people and told them things they didn't want to hear in that moment. So I'm curious your thoughts about that gap and religious trauma in general when you counsel people. And I understand it's confidential, but I imagine over the course of several years of experience, you've seen a theme or a pattern among people who feel a pressure to be professional Christians. What would you care to share about any of that?
Right. That's a loaded topic. So the sad thing is we're not called to be professional Christians. Being a Christian isn't a professional status.
Wow.
It's a lifelong journey of pursuit of knowing Jesus. So that just kind of messed up in and of itself in my mind.
Right.
But honestly, Arvin, I probably did that.
Wow.
I definitely did that. For a while.
Do you know why you did?
I was a pastor's kid. And it was a part of my home culture, expectations, also performance.
Sure.
I knew that I felt loved when I performed.
Whoa.
I grew up with a microphone in my hand.
Totally.
I have a whole thing around that.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I felt like, and I think, even though I always knew God just loved me, I always walked in that daughtership with him that was really uniquely special.
Sure.
I think I also did fall into the lie that he would love me more, or I guess more,
right.
if I was a professional Christian. So I think that where I see a lot of spiritual trauma when with people, and I see it show up with little blanket scriptures that put this pressure of expectation of I'm not loved by God if this, or I'm not accepted, I'm not good enough, I'm not, and then there's actual real spiritual trauma of people that have been in churches, in ministry leadership positions, that they've been abused in that position.
That's right.
I do think it's, this is one of my pet peeves. I don't think it's okay so this is way back in the day.
Sure.
And this is no longer as much now, but back in the day, 2 for the price of 1, you get the husband and you have the wife too. So the youth pastor, he's the youth pastor, but she's doing just as much work. 2 for the price of 1, right? And that feels a little bit abusive to me.
When churches would hire the youth pastor, knowing good and well that the wife would put in 40 hours.
Oh, and the expectation is she should be. She has to be there with him. And she doesn't get paid. She doesn't get recognized.
Wow, yeah.
But she better do that. And she feels like that's a part of being a good wife. A good, and meeting the needs. The needs are always there.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
And
I know my mom felt that.
Oh, I'm sure she, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so did my mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so did his mom.
And my mom for sure.
They all did.
Yeah.
Right. That's
wow.
right. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
amazing.
I recently, and I, with no names disclosed, and this was a minute ago.
Sure.
I had a client who was at a different state, a very well-known large church. She did an internship and ended up being sexually abused by one of the leaders.
Yeah.
She was younger at the time, earlier 20s.
Right.
And, he leveraged his
power.
Yeah.
And his spiritual influence over her.
Absolutely.
And abused her as a result of that.
Wow.
And so those things happen.
Unbelievable.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And so you're having to walk through that with her, and also, I'm a guy, so I don't know if it's my place to say this, but you're having to talk to her about pastors are not the problem. This guy sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
Not right.
Not God.
Oh, that's right. Not God
church,
and not the church.
pastors,
No, not generally. We love pastors, humans.
So-
This particular human who happened to be in ministry.
Right. Absolutely.
But not generally, no. And I love the church. I love pastors. I love ministry. I love God. That's right. Sort that out.
Yeah, because I believe in the world, people have issues with a whenever I say mega church, a larger ministry or, the Southwest Baptist or anything, people have an issue with a organization because it's easier to blame a big organization.
It is.
Or they have an issue with God. God isn't real because, and then they will have a very convincing story if you don't know your Bible, that it's you were hurt by a individual.
Yeah.
Or a group of people.
Right.
But really, it's usually an individual who called themselves a follower of God and who was in leadership. So having to walk people through that is just always such, I'm sure, a unique thing.
Yeah. Well, it's easier to, make a blanket statement and kind of hide under that instead of, dealing with tweezing it out and realizing it is just the individual.
Yeah.
And, this is what happened. And, but it's harder. It's harder to trust as a result.
Of course.
It's harder to maybe re-enter a healthy walk.
I'm sure if you go into another church and whoever gets up on stage, you're looking at them with this
of course.
prove to me that you're not scum.
Yeah. Show me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's very understandable to feel that way, especially, oh my goodness, after being
absolutely
hurt
by
by someone in that position.
Yeah.
So because we have to bring this to a close,
Darn it.
What would you, I know,
Yeah.
but what would you say to people who are listening, whether they are believers or non-believers, whether they are in a church, they're searching for a church, kind of like, or we also have people from other churches and they are on worship team or they're in creative departments or they're pastors.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're ministry leaders. What is some things that you would say to them, something that maybe you wish you knew whenever you were in?
Well,
good. Okay.
Like, I wish I knew, fill in the blank, whenever you initially started this.
Right. I wish I knew that I could find a safe place to be honest and real. And it would move me into the freedom that I longed for.
Wow. Yeah.
I wish I knew that there is a greater understanding that I could have of the whole person and the comprehension of all those parts and bring them together to move me into that freedom.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And, I would just tell anyone, there is more freedom. There's more freedom. There's more freedom for me, for you, right? And God has that for you.
Yeah.
And I do believe that there is something almost supernatural about stepping in to a new place of opening your soul.
Yeah.
Of therapy, being willing to go into a counselor's office or online or however you want to do it and bare your soul and let God meet you in that place in a new way.
Totally.
I would just encourage everybody to try that. I do want to say this. I do want to distinguish. There is a difference between Christian therapy and secular therapy.
Sure.
Now, I think the tools can be good in secular therapy as well.
Sure.
But be careful who you subject yourself to, because there is a lot of influence. I have recognized I have a lot of influence sitting in this chair.
Wow.
And so I want to be always submitted to God in that and be really aware. And, one of my biggest things is, having discernment and letting that be a part of the process as I'm trying to guide people into truth.
Yeah.
So, there is a differentiation between that. There's also people that are therapists that are Christians, but they're not necessarily Christian therapists, meaning
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, and that's okay too.
Sure.
I incorporate God in this. They're not going to come in for a sermon. This is not church. This is therapy. So we're going to do the work here in a different way. But, so I would just challenge people to take the step.
Right.
Look and seek and you will find.
Yeah. Wow.
Seek and you will find.
Knock and the door will be open.
Yeah.
That's really good. And it's wonderful whenever you say that scripture that it's like that is a mirror scripture. When you look at that scripture, the Bible reads you. And so that scripture is actually talking to you. Knock and the door will be open.
Yeah.
Seek and you will find. Seek within.
Yes.
With all thine getting, get
wisdom and understanding.
Wisdom and understanding. And understanding, as we've talked about this before on previous podcasts, is just the more you understand yourself, the more the Bible will jump out at you.
That's true.
And you'll be able to live in freedom. And as Brenda was saying, having a safe place. Arvin, do you have anything?
No, I think this has been really helpful and thought-provoking. I hope you have a lot to think about as you're listening to this, watching this.
So let us know what you guys thought about this episode. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you to Brenda for taking her time.
Thank you, Miss Brenda.
Thanks
Everyone
for having me.
clap in front of your phone like this. Wherever you're, even if you're on the treadmill, just clap out loud in the gym, really loud, and scream.
Woo!
Pump your fist. We love you guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.